Hello everyone, and welcome to the finale of our reading of Fate Strange Fake Volume 2. The volume where things got crazy. And people say, oh yeah, by the way, it's just gonna get crazier. I mean, I can't even, imagine that, really. But overall, yeah, this is pretty good. We're on Chapter 6, which you can't see the 6, but we're on Chapter 6, and it's called Two Archers and... a baby? But also two archers. Well, we know there's two assassins now. But who could the second archer be? I mean, there was that one mysterious shot from the shadows, so we'll have to see. Alright, time for us to get reading. Day 1, noon. Two archers and... in a dream. Yay! A doggy! Oh, right, we're in the Tsubaki's world. An innocent cry resounded in the sunlit garden. There's a kitty too, and a squirrel! She chased after all the animals scurrying back and forth across the garden lawn, catching one of them and hugging it to her. You brought them all to me. You brought them all, didn't you, Mr. Black? Thank you. The girl looked up at an enormous black shadow. Ryder wriggled. Tsubaki called the servant Mr. Black. It did not appear to frighten her. Countless birds flocked through the sky overhead, and small animals ran energetically around her. The garden had the air of a miniature petting zoo, and Tsubaki was happy for it. Tsubaki, it's almost time for lunch. Remember to wash your hands. I will. At a word from her parents, Tsubaki went into the house. She turned around once to take another look at the sun-drenched garden. Birds singing, cats and dogs basking in the sun of the lawn, squirrels munching on nuts with its children. It was the picture of her ideal garden. Only the great black shadow swaying in its center was out of place. Tsubaki, who seemed not to notice its strangeness, beamed with satisfaction, unaware what was taking place in the world to pay for her modest garden. Oh geez. Bigga! Pokemon 3 the movie vibes from this. A cheap motel. Next, the news. Veterinary hospitals throughout Snowfield are in a state of panic. Since early this morning, animals across the city have been entering comatose states and worry that this could be a new form of communicable diseases spreading among residents. All the affected animals soon regain consciousness, but based on the fact that reddish-brown spots have appeared on their skin, an investigation in cooperation with the Municipal Health Board is... Hooray! The formalities are finally over with! I've done it, Jack! In spite of the news running on the local cable station, a carefree voice filled the cheap motel room. Indeed. Celebrating is all very well, but at the present I question the wisdom of shouting my true name at the top of your lungs. Oh, I guess you're right. Sorry about that. In that case, let's think up a nickname for you. Something like, the English Hell Slasher, or, just call me Berserker. The Berserker watch pointed its hands at the excitable Flat. Flat's high spirits had to do with a cell phone in his hands. It was the latest model, capable of sending emails with photos attached and making international calls. How quaint. He was delighted that with it, he would be able to make contact with his master at the clock tower. I'm finally connected to all sorts of things. I went out of my way to buy the actual phone yesterday, but I was only able to use the camera and radio. Flat was staring at the screen, viewing a variety of photographs. They included, for example, one of the exploded opera house. I wish I'd gotten a shot of that heroic spirit's performance yesterday. I was so excited about getting interviewed myself that I ended up missing my chance. Well, I suppose taking a photograph is one way of obtaining intelligence on enemy heroic spirits. Jack was trying to take positive view of the situation. Oh, but I did get a picture of the dead apostle, and of one other heroic spirit, Flat responded, eyes shining. He pointed the screen at the watch. It displayed an image of the dead apostle who had gone on a rampage throughout the police station parking lot the other day. This is valuable. All the other people who took pictures deleted them because of the church lady's hypnosis. Oh, I'm so glad I was trained to avoid hypnotic suggestion. Wait a moment. The vampire concerns me, but more importantly, tell me about this one other heroic spirit. Oh, that's right. Your eyes were glued to the battle between the priest and the dead apostle, Jack, so you wouldn't have noticed him. Why did you not say something to me at the time? Well, it was only for a moment, so I figured it could wait, Flat answered lightly. Berserker thought it was about time that he gave his master good talking to, and was about to enter into a telepathic harangue. Before he could begin, however, Flat's next words poured over his cold water over his temper. Besides, if we slipped up and made a fuss and he noticed us, I'm pretty sure we would have been killed instantly. What? I've never seen such an incredible mass of energy before. It's not even a question of what ability he has or what his true name is. I think we'd probably be dead the moment he laid eyes on us. Flat's expression was the same as ever, but Berserker intuitively understood the truth of the boy's words. They had had a brush with death, and Flat, far from blurting it out immediately, had actually forgotten to tell him until just then. That fact made Berserker uneasy, but at the same time it gave him an odd sense of security. Really, you are the limit. I'd taken you for a mere fool, but now I see you can be dry about the strangest things. You thought I was a fool this whole time? I take it you're upset? No, in fact I'm kinda glad. Grinning cheerfully, Flat thought back on the clock tower, which was almost like a second home to him. People have always been weirdly afraid of me or avoided me ever since I was a little kid. The only ones who would ever call me things like fool or idiot are the professor, and his sister the princess, and everyone else in our department, and the OBs. Flat's tone was solemn. Berserker almost sympathized with him for a moment, then thought better of him. Wouldn't that be, well, quite a lot of people? Several minutes later, London, the clock tower. While Snowfield was greeting the dawn, morning was still a long way from London. In a room of the clock tower, the nucleus of Magecraft, two of its executives had come face to face for a consultation on the Holy Grail War in Snowfield. I knew he was a fool and an idiot, Lord Elmaloy II muttered, grimacing. The man sitting with him, Rocco Belfaban, let out a sigh before answering. I concur, Mr. 2. It's the second, but that's really funny. The pair were looking at images relayed by mages who had been sent to infiltrate the Snowfield site. A pool of mercury used in mystical communication was currently displaying a recording of Snowfield's local news broadcast. Huh? Am I on TV? Oh wow, I wonder if the Professor and Rhinus are watching. No sooner did Elmaloy see an excited Flat face the camera and say those words than he experienced the vivid sensation that his stomach was dancing a jig while playing the violin badly. Rocco, seeing the deep furrows on Elmaloy's brow, addressed him half-pityingly. Who is Rocco Belfaban? Is this a character we've ever met? Rocco Belfaban. Have we ever met this character? Oh, he's the old dude that looks kind of rock and roll. Right, okay. Yeah, I visually know him. Yeah, he has like the white hair, the kind of dark skin, and the big round glasses. Yeah. Okay. I bear some of the responsibility for forcing him on you in the first place, but to be honest, you've kept him on so long I've gone past admiration for you and into exasperation. The old mage made his chair creak as he continued, both master and disciple entering the Grail War behind the professor's back. You might as well just say that recklessness is part of your curriculum. I can't deny it. Still, while Flat is a problem child, he's also an unmitigated genius. If by some chance he manages to bring the Great Grail system back to the clock tower, well, nothing could be better. And if he managed to bring back an actual heroic spirit as a research subject, well, it could rewrite the books. The old man was, in short, suggesting that they might come away with only the tastiest morsels. Elmaloy II gave a slight shrug. I see. Words worthy of the head of Department of Summoning and Lord of the School of Spiritualism. Then again, Director Ulysses, let's go Ulysses, might come right out and say asset instead of research subject. Leave off the sarcasm. You know better than anyone that being an acting lord doesn't mean anything. Yes, I agree. I'm merely keeping the seat warm. Which do you think will happen first? Our princess reaching maturity, or the stately procession making its way through Fuyuki and other special spiritual lands coming back? I told you to leave off the sarcasm. Rocco was a rigid conservative, even by the clock tower standards. By all rights, he ought to look down on his nose at a temporary lord who refused to side with the conservatives or the reformists like Elmloy II, but at present they were talking like virtual equals. This was because his own position was a little like Elmloy II's. Interesting. Cool, we're actually getting some history of him. The proper lord of the School of Spiritualism, its director, the present head of the Ulysses family, and his successor, Brahm Nuada Ray Sophia Ree, whose name still pisses me off, were temporarily absent from the clock tower due to a special assignment. And wait, his successor was Brahm Nuada Ree Sophia. Did she not die? Or is this someone else? Brahm Nuada Ree Sophia Ree. Oh, no. This is, right. This is Sola. No, because I'm thinking of Sola Ui. Sola Ui Nuada Sophia Ree, again, whose names piss me off, is the sister who died. Bram is the brother who, yes, we saw in, apparently in Apocrypha and the Elmaloy case files. Right. They were gone. And until they returned from their lengthy mission, Rocco had been appointed to fill the position of Lord as their representative. He craved power, but he also realized that he was unsuited to the office of Lord, and so ended up feeling ashamed of himself at conferences. So ashamed that he could feel his life shorten every time another Lord, especially Lord Bartholomew, Bartholomew. Oh my god. Elmaloy and Bartholomew. I can't say that. Bartholomew. How come I can say Elmaloy but not Bartholomew? What the frick? Elmaloy. Malloy. Bartholomew. Okay. That's tough. Anyways, whenever Lord Bartholomew, oh, this name sucks, glared in his direction. Thanks to that, he had apparently developed a sympathetic side for Lord Elmaloy, whose name is much easier to say, who must have felt even more shame than he did. Still, that man in armor who turned up later on is a bigger problem than Flat. If he was a heroic spirit, I suppose we should take it to mean that the Americans lacked the power to keep the Grail War entirely secret. Well, I can only imagine that he exceeded their expectations, but Elmaloy II wanted to declare categorically that a heroic spirit who would voluntarily appear on television wanted to declare that one who would involuntarily appear was unprecedented, okay, but the image of a certain broad-minded heroic spirit who would probably have given his own true name on the air if given the chance kept popping into his mind. Oh, he's thinking of his boyfriend. Well, you can never tell what might happen in a Holy Grail war. He muttered to avoid the issue, then launched onto his own views of secrecy. The secrecy maintained by the Holy Church and ourselves won't last more than another 5 years. After that, we'll enter the era where anyone can upload high-definition images to social networks in real time. Once that happens, the ability of information to spread will outstrip the pressure to conceal it. We are approaching a crossroads where we'll have to choose either to explore new methods of secrecy or to reveal something. I'm sorry, I haven't been keeping up with the times. What field of magecraft uses the term social network? Oh boy. Elmaloy II remembered that the old man in front of him was a staunch conservative mage who balked at ordinary telephones, let alone cellular ones, and wondered where to begin. Then the cell phone in his own pocket sounded to tell him he had mail. Excuse me. He did not recognize the address, but the title to Mr. Absolute Territory Magician was enough to tell Elmaloy who sent it. He desperately struggled to maintain his cool while mentally shouting the F word, which I can't say on YouTube, but you know the one, it's written right there. My stupid fool of a pupil has finally made contact. Oh ho, how fortuitous. Elmaloy II next scanned the mail's contents. Hi, Professor. This'll be my phone mail debut. Thanks to you, I was able to summon the best heroic spirit. Look at my Berserker! A photo of a steampunk-style watch was attacked. I don't have a clue what he's talking about. Elmloy II wondered if it was not his student who had gotten the madness enhancement skill, but then he thought that Flat probably already had it already and kept his cool. A few seconds later, another mail arrived from Flat. I've discovered my first heroic spirit in town. Actually, if you include Berserker in the Man in Armor, I guess he's my third. He seems scary, so of course I couldn't just say hello. I wonder what I could do to make friends with him. Honestly, that idiot. He opened the attached photo, experiencing the vivid sensation that his own stomach had begun head-banging to death metal. Then he saw the flashy man riding in the back of the Cadillac in the picture, and his, oh boy, you would recognize him. Then he saw the flashy man riding in the back of the Cadillac in the picture, and his stomach's wailing suddenly stopped. And not just his stomach. His breathing, blinking, even his heart might have stopped for a few seconds. Impossible. What is it, Mr. the Second? Rocco sounded concerned, but in Elmaloy's head the pieces were falling into place. He had gotten word of the crater formed in the desert. Besides, while the man's clothes and hair were different from those he remembered, he could never fail to recognize the unbelievably powerful heroic spirit he had once seen in Fuyuki. If that heroic spirit was involved, then a crater or two were to be expected. Rocco stared at Mr. Elmaloy II's pale face, worried that the anxiety might cause him to collapse again, when time abruptly resumed, and Elmaloy II sprang to his feet, overflowing with energy. Excuse me, do you mind if I email for a moment? Oh, no? Rocco nodded, overawed. Email? He wondered, seeing the grave look on Elmaloy II's face. Is he going to write a letter here? Where's his pen? He was apparently under the impression that the earlier communication had arrived via mystical telepathy or something of the kind. Behind the old mage's back, Elmaloy II was entering text into his cell phone at incredible speed. Yo, he's got that. He's got them gamer thumbs. You know he plays Halo 2 on Xbox Live and writes many slurs because he is a gamer. I say that and there is literally a slur right there on the screen. Oh my god. As your professor, I'm giving you an assignment. No matter what happens, stay away from that heroic spirit. After thinking for a moment, he made one addition. Hurry up and mail me your cell phone number, you slur. What slur did he say? I was joking, but he literally said a gamer word, I bet. Oh my god. Okay. All right, Waver. I mean, he's from a different time. The same time, Snowfield, the top floor of Crystal Hill, the royal suite. Gilgamesh, unaware that his photograph had caused the mage's heart to stop for several seconds, was looking down on the city through the full glass siding of his superlatively opulent room. Ha ha ha! As I thought, even in the simple arrangement of its roads and buildings, the city of Uruk is more beautiful. He laughed good-humoredly, comparing it to the city he had once ruled. Once they had gotten back into Tina's workshop in the Cadillac, he had Tina gather only the bare necessities and taken her to the top floor of the casino hotel. The funds, naturally, had come from his casino winnings of the day before. Because he used the fortune he had won in their casino at the hotel, the management regarded him as their finest customer. In addition to Tina, a number of her black-clad subordinates came to stay as bodyguards. One conspicuous man, and a crowd who respectfully followed him. To the hotel staff, they must have looked like some billionaire and his servants. Possibly they took Tina due to her age as a servant's daughter or the rich man's ward. Tina did not understand Gilgamesh's intentions. He was a king, so he probably wanted to base himself in the most luxurious rooms in the city. To her, however, moving to such a conspicuous place was merely unnerving. It would probably be watched by the enemy mages who had built the city, and, as it was not even a workshop, it would be difficult to make ready against attack. And even if they did make it into a workshop, that would hardly be enough to assuage her anxiety. I hear that there was a case in the previous Grail War in which a master crushed a workshop by bringing down the entire hotel it was in. Our enemy's organization is vast, so they may attempt to Oh, no, never mind, this is her saying it. I was gonna say, yeah, you should know about this, buddy. I heard there was a case in a previous Grail War in which a master crushed a workshop by bringing down the entire hotel it was in. Our enemy's organization is vast, so they may attempt to destroy us, Crystal Hill and all, she had counseled. Let them do as they please, Gilgamesh had replied easily. Ordinarily, I would tell you to overcome such trifles yourself, but I suppose I am the one who summoned you to this place. I shall at least lend you a parachute. It was impossible to tell whether Gilgamesh was serious or joking. He continued to stare down at the city with a graceful bearing. Before long, he moved to the west wall of the room. It seems my friend is in quite the festive mood as well, he chuckled, looking out with great force that extended as far as the eye could see. I mean, making such a vast wood dance. Tine, hearing those woods, looked toward the forest as well. As one of the protectors of the land, she soon realized what was happening. The whole forest was shifting and rustling, as if it was a single creature. Your friend? Yes, I shall tell you about him sometime if the mood takes me. Still, our reunion banquet was quite replete. If only we had not been interrupted. We have gone on for 3 days and 3 nights. That tremendous battle for 3 whole days. I mean, the battle would have probably been for 2 days. The last day would have been reserved for mutual butt fun between the two friends. Absolutely. Gilgamesh's words made Tine feel faint, and nervous sweat ran down her back. It was no joke. If the King of Heroes said so, then he really could fight for 3 days and 3 nights. If there was any reason he could not, it was because she was his master. As a mage and an heir to an ancestral power, she thought she was strong. But what could she do in the face of powerful heroic spirits? Tine continued to wonder, but she was determined to use everything she had. At present, our allies are tracking the movements of other mages. The head of the Kuraoka family, who appears to be one of the architects of the city system, is behaving as if she has nothing to do with the Grail War, but why report that to me? As master, you decide how to act. Yes, your majesty. Gilgamesh glanced at the despondent Tine, flashed a wicked grin and asked, So, Tine, you want to take this land back, do you not? Of course I do. In that case, wouldn't you agree that making a wasteland of this banal scenery, along with those mongrel mages, would be the fastest way to do it? What? It did not seem like a joke. Gilgamesh, the King of Heroes, could easily achieve what he said. The battle in the desert of Dago had taught her he had that power. Your Majesty jests. I jest. Is it not the solution closest to your ancestors' dearest wish? What difference is there between the life of the clown who first summoned me and those of the mongrels who crawl in this city? Would it not be simplest to use those command seal of yours and order me to erase the city? I could even wait for your compatriots to evacuate. Tina considered a while, then timidly answered, If I were to commit such an atrocity, I would be the same as the mages who stole this land. Lacking. That's an answer you found, not the one you thought of yourself. Tina was deeply ashamed to be seen so easily through. Even she knew that was the wrong answer. I swore to become even greedier than the mages and steal back the land, so why do I hesitate to destroy the city? Why? 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 Tina hung her head in shock, failing to fathom even her own heart. She could not answer the king's question. She had no choice but to face his judgment. The girl's heart began to fill with a fear which she thought she had cast aside. She had been prepared for death from beginning. Now, however, she was more frightened of disappointing this heroic spirit. Gilgamesh saw the state Tina was in, saw what she was thinking, and laughed as he continued. So, you've begun to doubt. I approve. What? Doubt is a foundation for demolishing blind faith. What are you looking so gloomy for? I was merely teasing you a little. Let it pass. There had obviously been nothing teasing about his import, but for the moment Tina felt relieved. Her self-doubt, however, did not disappear. It clung to her heart. Still, even setting your wish aside, when you look at human garbage, do you not find yourself wanting to blow it all away? Gilgamesh vented, sounding bored as he looked down on the city once more. Honestly, I toured the city in person yesterday, and most of this era's mongrels are utterly worthless. Mongrels ought to flourish in my garden, but merely growing in number is ugly. What do you intend to do about it? Tine was nervous that the King of Heroes might suddenly decide to remove the townspeople from his sight. As if to assuage such worries, Gilgamesh shrugged. Do not concern yourself. I would hardly go out of my way to clean up refuse. Gilgamesh sounded bored as he surveyed the city. Although if I were to incarnate and truly savor life's pleasures, well, it would be another story. When that time comes, I may consider culling the mongrels unworthy of life, but that has nothing to do with me now. If the mongrels choose a slow ruin, I shall simply watch their foolish end with a laugh. And then he went on, waxing nostalgic for the distant past and seeming to speak half to himself. If my garden was to be spoiled by rampaging monsters, I could not ignore it, but if it is the road the mongrels chose for themselves, I shall not object. Although if they fail to notice that a choice remains, I may at least grant them hardships as guideposts. Hearing those words, Tine felt both relieved and awed. The King of Heroes was indeed a king who would treat the whole earth as his garden, a king among kings equipped with an unshakable self who would pass sentence on the human race. Tine sensed something that was not divine justice. She continued to stare fixedly at Gilgamesh, hoping to identify it. What is it? Have you finally noticed the greatest pleasure in the world is to look on my glory? Very well, I shall permit you. Stare at me to your heart's content, and pass on the tale to your offspring until the stars perish. Tine thought that he must be joking this time, but she could not fake the feeling that he was serious. I don't really understand, but he really is an incredible person. Tine, who, although mature for her age, was still fundamentally a child, appeared to accept Gilgamesh's eccentric speech and conduct and, judged by ordinary standards, extreme aspect as just how kings are. In a sense, you could say they were highly compatible. Then the King of Heroes opened his mouth to deliver another indifferent, capricious proclamation. Now today, I suppose we ought to begin by removing the flying vermin. Flying vermin? Yes, it seems there's a boorish fellow who got in the way of my and my friend's joyous reunion. Yesterday I made a circuit of the city in search of the scoundrel, but I did not find them. Therefore there is nothing to do but sit and wait for them to come to me. Wait? You mean here? Naturally. The King of Heroes answered the bewildered Tine in a voice brimming with confidence. One of the most formidable opponents of the Holy Grail War taking up a position as conspicuous as this will not go unnoticed. Of course, my friend, another dangerous foe, is making a racket in the forest, but whichever way the vermin are drawn, there will be fewer of them. I wasn't clear what basis Gilgamesh had for his declaration, but in any case, he made it confidently. Insects cannot resist dazzling lights. Once I've enticed them in, I shall incinerate them without a trace. Then the next instant, a biting wind blew through the city of Snowfield. The police station, the chief's office. Yoo-hoo, doing well, newbie? Francesca's voice was brimming with youthful energy. Go home, you old bitch. The chief practically spat his reply. Oh, what's this? I knew you were calling me that behind my back, but you just might hurt my feelings saying it to my face. I enjoy physical wounds more than mental ones, so I wish you'd think before you speak. Shut up. The chief was plainly hostile to the gothic Lolita girl, but she did not show the least sign of leaving. Yes, I'll be quiet. Let me just say one thing, though. You keep going old, but you know, it's only been 3 years since I started using this body. Even its organs are pretty. Wanna look? So saying, Francesca quickly rolled up a part of her dress, exposing her belly button, and something bizarre along with it. It was a shapely belly at first what the frick? It was a shapely belly at first glance, but there was something on it that did not belong. A wide zipper directly installed into the flesh. It was made of a material like human teeth. Ew, don't like that. And extended from near her ribcage on both sides, joining above her belly button. One did not like to imagine what it would look like if you were to open it. Well, do you want to look? You do, don't you? A good look at the girl's secret organs. That's horrible. That's horrible, Francesca giggled seductively. I need a drink. Thank you, Chinese Squirtle tea. The chief, however, did not turn a hair. What do you want? Come to laugh at me when I'm down? Of course not. I came to check up on you. Talk about a disaster. I mean, a dead apostle being a master? Not even I could have foreseen that. We've got to eliminate them quickly. Liar. Anyone could tell that you're secretly overjoyed things have gotten interesting. Oh, is it that obvious? But you know I do loathe dead apostles. They are enemies of the whole human race after all. I'm on humanity's side, so I'll never let the likes of them have it. Francesca self-confidently threw out her chest. You're just struggling for prey, the chief spat again. What's this? Are you pouting? Was that handsome priest stealing your spotlight come as that much of a shock? More importantly, how do we treat the Holy Church? You can ignore them for now. Any master that wants to go running to them at the last minute will do it on their own anyway. Francesca twirled her umbrella, then puffed out her cheeks. Either way, there were parts of what happened last night that weren't fun even for me. Which ones? I mean, it was an executor and a dead apostle who got to stand out in the end. That's not right. Outsiders like them aren't supposed to have such big roles in the opening moves. Francesca shook her umbrella and her fists as she spoke. Then she suddenly stopped moving, spread her arms wide, and declared to no one in particular, Servants and their masters are still the stars of the Holy Grail War. Don't you agree? Just as she turned to the chief with a broad grin, the area around them was enveloped in the roar of an explosion, and every pane of glass in the chief's office window shattered. It was not just the office. A thunderous roar and a blast of wind shook every window on the north side of the police station to pieces. Now it's starting. Have you brought a pamphlet? Got your popcorn? Oh, but I guess it'd be donuts for you, Chief. Hurry up or you'll miss out on the match of the century. You bitch. The chief glared at Francesca. He was still unaware that the police station was not the only building with broken glass. Several dozen seconds earlier, North Snowfield, a great ravine. A red clay ravine several kilometers further north from the cave where Gilgamesh had been summoned. The man stood on rise that reached almost the same elevation as the top floor of the Crystal Hill. A lean, wiry man just over 2 meters tall. His hands clutched a bow. Who is this? It was larger than an ordinary longbow, but it seemed a little undersized in the tall man's hands. The man's dress went beyond eccentric to what could be called bizarre. The first thing that caught one's eye was a long, decorated cloth draped vertically over his body. And not draped over his shoulders either. The cloth was centered on the top of his head. I can't imagine this. What? Okay, it was okay. And not draped over his shoulders either. The cloth was centered on the top of his head, having completely covered his face and the back of his head, hanging down so that it concealed both the front and back of his body. Strange. The only parts of his head that peeked out from under his cloth were his ears. On his upper body, however, he wore nothing else. A dark stain dyed every inch of his exposed skin. It was also marked with some design in a white dye, but it was hidden by the aforementioned cloth and it was impossible to view. I hope there's a picture on the next page. Who the frick? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. You're not wrong. There is a... right? Where his ears, his upper body, he wore nothing, a dark stain marked with some white design, possibly. Yeah, okay, no, you described him. Okay. Now, okay, so his hair looks like dark. Did it mention his skin tone? Because he looks almost a bit darker here. The man, who looked at first glance like he was about to appear in a horror game and chase its protagonist around, I was gonna say, little Silent Hill vibes, smirked under the cloth that covered his face and silently drew his bow. Okay, cool. Just another new servant. Let's play the figuring out game. Then his fingers released the bowstring and loosed an arrow that flew far faster than the wind and outstripped even the speed of sound. High above Snowfield, a wind-like blade carved a straight line through the city of Snowfield. It split the air, throwing off shockwaves. By the time a roar like thunder filled the area, the wind had already passed. At the wind's center was a single arrow. It was headed toward the top floor of a skyscraper in the heart of Snowfield, Crystal Hill. The arrow shot by the mystery man plunged ahead like a laser, defying the laws of physics by never slowing down or losing altitude. It had already traveled more than 20 kilometers. That alone was enough to prove the archer was no human and no ordinary mage. Shockwaves raced through the sky over the city. The impact and noise together shattered the glass of every building below the arrow's trajectory, one after another. No human, not even a heroic spirit, could survive a direct hit from such a missile unscathed. The strike would reduce their upper body to mincemeat before it even pierced their skull. The arrow was charging straight towards its target, Gilgamesh, the king of heroes who had taken up position on the highest floor of Crystal Hill. Or rather, the head of the girl standing beside him, his master. Oh? Crystal Hill, the royal suite. Tine, who had been facing Gilgamesh, suddenly turned to look out the north window. What? The sound had not yet reached her. She'd merely sensed a disturbance in the mana filling the sky, and turned to face it for no particular reason. By the time she sensed the wind being ripped to shreds, it was already too late. A tiny point of death was closing in on the girl, too close to her to react in time. No matter what she tried to do now, there was no way avoiding the supersonic arrow. At least, not for her. An instant later, when the arrow came within 20 meters of the hotel, thunder sounded outside the glass. There was a dazzling flash, and countless tiny bolts of lightning streaked through the sky. One of them appeared to strike the arrow, and what should have been a killing blow disintegrated in the air just short of its target. The shockwaves, however, still shattered the glass and assailed everyone in the room. A wordless incantation. A wind sprung from Tine's hand and became a protective wall, knocking the shower falling glass away from her, Gilgamesh, and her black-suited followers. "Are you unharmed, my lord?" she called out to Gilgamesh as soon as she steadied her breathing. "It is nothing." The king of heroes was uninjured, but sounded displeased. "What was that lightning?" "The very thunderbolts are my noble phantasms. It appears they have intercepted some attack," Gilgamesh replied offhandedly. "An attack?" Tine could not keep from blurting out. When she looked out the window, she saw that there were a number of discs floating around the top of the building. Noble phantasms continued to make their rounds, clad in miniature lightning, inscribing beautiful geometric designs against the vista. Auto-defensors. There was a chance that my friend might jestingly launch a surprise attack. I set them up as a precaution, but... Gilgamesh looked to the north, and pulled a noble phantasm from his treasury, a weirdly curved lens and a golden ring that floated in the air. Despite having only a single lens, it displayed distant scenery like a telescope. I never imagined it would serve to repel the arrows of a mere archer. The image that appeared in the ring was that of a man, facing them and fearlessly readying his bow. An archer. A doubt passed through Tine's brain. Archer was none other than Gilgamesh, who was standing beside her. Could this man be rider, assassin, berserker, or some other class who happened to wield a bow? When first she caught sight of the archer through the golden ring, she had immediately been surprised by how high his statuses were. In terms of pure statistical values, he could be said to surpass Gilgamesh. A hero to surpass Gilgamesh, huh? For some reason, my brain is instantly going to, like, is this Archer Beowulf? Because when I think of, like, great heroes to rival Gilgamesh, I think, like, Beowulf, because he's the first, like, English hero, right? And skin tone-wise, and possibly, like, scar-wise, that would track. The only thing is I don't recall him using too many bows and arrows, but we'll have to see. Berserker then? Tine was wary. Gilgamesh, however, remained expressionless. "Are you coming?" he muttered. But the second shot had already been fired. The auto-defensor's lightning activated to intercept the arrow, but although several bolts struck home, it slipped through the gaps in the bolts to fly straight at Gilgamesh. The speed at which electricity travels through the air, that is, the speed of lightning, was slower than light. Well, slower than light still should be enough to be more than sufficient to stop any ordinary arrow. The speed of that arrow, however, was beyond human limitations. Gilgamesh immediately materialized his armor and swept the arrow aside with his gauntlet. It seemed that it could not completely kill the shot's momentum, however, because a portion of the armor cracked and fragments of gold shattered the floor. Oh. Gilgamesh surveyed the broken pieces of his own armor with an icy look, slightly narrowed his eyes, and the barbarian has considerable skill with the bow, but he is ignorant of manners. I shall use him to clear the rust from my treasures. The next instant, a gigantic noble phantasm appeared beyond the shattered glass, floating alongside the top floor. Oh, I know what this is. What is... Tine, you shall ride in back. May I? Were I to leave you here, I could not entirely protect you from those hateful arrows. It would be inconvenient if you, my master, were to die before I fulfill my agreement with my friend. Tine responded to her king's matter-of-fact declaration with a forceful nod and climbed onto the rear of the enormous noble phantasm. One of the many noble phantasms that Gilgamesh possessed, Vimana, shaped like a golden yacht that had sprouted gigantic fairy wings, it was a miniature flying warship. The king's hoard, said to include every treasure, included not only weapons, but all the fruits of human intellect. Once Tine was on all fours at Vimana's rear, Gilgamesh launched his golden craft. Tine was nearly sent flying by the sudden acceleration, but she invoked windbreak and gravity manipulation magecraft, and somehow managed to steady her balance and breathing. Gilgamesh took up an imposing stance on the prow. Please, I hope he's up. I really hope he's up there doing the gunbuster pose. Please. And set the ship on a straight course toward the archer. Arrows, presumably fired by his target, flew at him periodically, but the dozens of interception systems Gilgamesh had deployed around the ship were shooting them down perfectly. I think just around the ship were shooting them down perfectly. Amazing. The girl realized afresh what she was riding on, could not suppress an exclamation. Even something like this. Was the emotion in the voice of the girl who thought she had thrown all hers away awe, or was it longing? North Snowfield, on the high slope of a ravine. "Aho," the archer muttered, looking at the golden ship that had now arrived in front of him. His voice was low. Behind it lay a tinge of admiration and a faint hint of self-mockery. "You were the one who launched that surprise attack. I suppose you don't intend to beg for your life?" Gilgamesh asked. He had alighted onto the rise from the prow of his ship. In response, the uncanny archer, who stood roughly 10 meters ahead of him, slowly raised his head. "Do you have any last words?" The mysterious archer, however, gave no answer. He silently drew his bow taut and unflinchingly launched an arrow at Tine, who was poking her head out from behind Vimana's rear seat. The supersonic missile rushed at Tine's face. She might be able to deaden the shockwave with a wall of wind, but she could not block the arrow itself. Tine was once again conscious of death approaching her before her eyes when Vimana's options, Shut up. No, they're not literally calling them options, are they? No, shut up. Like frickin' Xevious? Like, frickin' what's it called? Gradius. Gradius is where options are from, right? You mean to tell me that Vimana has options? I'm going to scream. This is so good. Their interception noble phantasm shot it down in the nick of time. Fool, did you think they would deactivate when I disembarked? Ignoring Gilgamesh's words, the archer fired a second shot, and the third in quick succession. Tine had already hidden herself inside the craft, but he continued to ply his bow with a force that threatened to pierce Romana's armor along with her. A vein pulsed in Gil's temple. An onlooker, had there been any, could tell that the man was not seriously trying to shoot Tine, ship and all. He was simply trying to provoke the heroic spirit Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh either failed to notice the provocation, or having noticed it, was yet more irritated by the archers continuing to ignore him and target his master, because a tinge of anger began to creep into his dispassionate tone. I see. That is certainly the correct choice if you are obsessed with victory, or if you would choose the easy path to it. I might do the same myself in jest, depending on the circumstances. A moment later. But such acts are permissible only because it is I who do them. They are not for the likes of you. Bellowing a declaration that stretched the limits of credulity, Gilgamesh launched countless noble phantasms from his gate of Babylon, which opened behind him. The archers seemed helpless under the rain of blades, some of which were high rank. He, however, brandished his bow with his left hand, and went about sweeping aside the shower of noble phantasms with a speed that defied even heroic spirit's expectations. What? The heroic spirit, who deflected dozens of noble phantasms without so much as a word, wordlessly stretched out an arm to Gilgamesh and, palm up, beckoned provocatively to him with fingers. When Gilgamesh saw that, his eyes narrowed, and he struggled to keep fury out of his voice that resounded across the rise. I see you have light fingers. In that case, how about this? With a malicious grin, Gilgamesh deployed his gate of Babylon over a wide area of the rise. The entrances to his treasury, deployed so as to surround the archer on all sides, began to twist like a tornado. They fired innumerable noble phantasms with the force of machine guns, raising a veritable whirlwind of lights and impacts high above the eminence. Tens, hundreds, thousands of noble phantasms poured down on the man who stood in the tornado's center. They were blades of wisdom, suffering, or salvation. They were blades or wisdom, suffering, or salvation. Okay. They were dragon-slaying longswords, cursed swords that bring ruin, hero-killing spears, formless thunderbolts, the originals of every noble phantasm that human hands had ever possessed or created were being hurled out unsparingly. A hellish rain of mankind's legends fired from every conceivable angle. Tine, witnessing the fearsome scene, imagined that not even a scrap of the archer's flesh would survive it. As the whirlwind settled, however, it disclosed a sight that betrayed both Gilgamesh and Tine's expectations. The archer, unharmed and brushing dust from the long cloth that covered his body, and mountains of numerously noble phantasms piled about him. Impossible. Gilgamesh, in contrast to the wide-eyed Tine... No, that was her. Impossible. Gilgamesh, in contrast to the wide-eyed Tine, stared wordlessly at his opponent. For a brief while, silence reigned on the rise, until it was broken by the archer's stifled laughter. There was obvious derision in the sounds audible from beneath the cloth. What's so funny? Gilgamesh asked, expressionless. The archer responded with the single, clearly spoken word. Weak. If anyone had confronted Gilgamesh in the past had heard that word, they would have doubted the man's sanity. It seemed to Tine that the temperature of the air had suddenly and precipitously dropped. Blindly hurling your arms. You would do better to throw sand. The mysterious archer continued in spite of the atmosphere. Only a real weakling, or a mindless beast would be felled by such child's play. It was a feeble voice, okay, I'm not doing it right, but its words were more than simple ridicule. They seemed charged with an implacable obsession. Oh? Gilgamesh's expression changed. Tine was worried that it might explode in rage, but on the contrary, there was actually a faint smile playing around the corners of his mouth. In that instant, Gilgamesh's ruling emotion had switched over from anger at an ill-mannered assailant to curiosity concerning a powerful foe. Draw the sword in the deepest recesses of your storehouse. Then we shall be equals, the mysterious archer declared to the King of Heroes. Whether he had received the information from someone or sensed presence from within the treasury during the earlier attack, he was telling Gilgamesh to come at me with your most powerful weapon. Ea is practically my other self. It is no sword to be used on a weakling such as you. Gilgamesh cheerfully returned the provocation, grinding his teeth as he smiled. Then, another sword appeared in Gilgamesh's hand in place of Ea the Divider. Merodach, said to be the original of swords of selection. Oh, interesting. Told in various regions of the globe. A sword to determine whether his opponent merited drawing Ea, which symbolized himself. That's interesting, actually. Merodach. What is that? Merodach sword. I'm curious. I'm Googling it. Well, I type it in and I get Fate. So, never mind. And I get stuff about, like, yeah, okay, so it's original Fate. That's not an actual... Okay, sounds good. Who knows? Maybe I'll learn more about that when I read the Garden of Avalon novel. That's coming up. That's not far away because I've been told to read that before the next Lost Belt. So I will. So I will. Prove to me that you are mighty enough to be worthy of beholding Ea. Foolish. If you had drawn it, you would not have to die. The archer whispered, then stretched out his right hand to the side. A new cloth materialized in it. At first glance, it appeared to be a sash painted with a plain design, but those capable of viewing things from another perspective would be able to tell how undeniably strange it is. Cloth? That is unmistakably a noble phantasm. Even to Tine's eyes, the magical energy coating the sash seemed abnormal. When Gilgamesh saw the cloth so coated in divine aura, so thick it seemed an actual god must have used it, his eyes narrowed slightly. It differs somewhat from the gods I know, but it seems the principle is the same. It was a noble phantasm that held no interest from the self-proclaimed misotheist Gilgamesh. He was, however, curious to see what transformation the archer might now display. His Gate of Babylon proved ineffective, so there was no sense in a surprise attack. Gilgamesh struck an imposing stance and waited for his opponent to act with half-expectant eyes. The archer smiled behind his cloth and made ready to unleash the power of his noble phantasm. A few seconds later, a blow imbued with divinity shook the earth. The great forest. Gil seems to be fighting someone strong. Enkidu abruptly stopped what he was doing and turned his gaze to the northeast of the forest. It was merely an expanse of trees, but Enkidu could see something else. Using his sense presence skill, he was able to sense Gil's strong aura from afar, as well as another equally powerful presence. It's strange. I have a feeling we've gone over the number of heroic spirits summoned in a Grail War, Enkidu wondered, but decided that such things happened and went on with his work, all the while keeping alert to Gil's presence and readying himself to go check immediately if it weakened. Oh. With that, barely a few minutes later, he sensed another abnormality. Another, entirely different presence had suddenly appeared right beside where his friend and the other were fighting. Uh-oh. Another presence. And another strong one. On the rise. A blow imbued with divinity shook the earth, but it was not the mysterious archer who had launched it. Oh? Tine, who had just peeked her head from Vimana's rear seat, could not believe what she was seeing. Just as the archer had been about to unleash the power of his cloth, a horse appeared out of nowhere, and the girl riding it landed behind him. Her age was probably between 16 and 18, at the very least she did not look to be more than 20. Her long hair was neatly gathered at the back of her head. The healthy tone of her skin was wrapped in a peculiar garment of soft cloth and leather. The girl, who gave an overall impression of activity, soundlessly approached the archer from behind with a look of cold dignity on her face. Gilgamesh furrowed his brows. The archer, noticing his gaze, tried to turn, and the girl's fist embedded itself into his cloth-covered face. The sound of the impact seemed like nothing less than an explosion. The archer's body was launched with the force of a bullet to lodge itself into the side of another small eminence, which then began to crumble. After a moment of silence, a simple fact dominated. The girl's slender arm had sent a man on whom the noble phantasms Gilgamesh fired from his Gate of Babylon had no effect on flying. The girl glared at the pile of rubble that buried the archer alive with eyes filled with a powerful hate. then gathered behind her at Tina and Gilgamesh and declared, "That fiend is my prey. Do not interfere." After a brief pause, Gilgamesh narrowed his eyes. "That is precisely what is meant by killing the mood, girl." From Gilgamesh's tone, Tina could tell that he was definitely displeased. His heart-pounding battle had been interrupted, so anger was to be expected, and if you included the first day, this was the second time someone had put a damper on one of his fights. The situation being critical, Tina attempted to at least discover their opponent's identity. One fact, however, deeply confused her. The cloth wrapped around the archer's arm had seemed to be a noble phantasm, and yet the exact same cloth was wrapped around the arm of the girl in front of her. It was not just the pattern. Even the potent divine aura that seemed to shake the air around it was identical. Oh, was he not a servant, but part of another servant? Or couldn't have been the same noble phantasm? As Tina wondered, Gilgamesh stewed in his rage. The rubble of the collapsed rise burst with a thunderous roar like an erupting volcano. The mighty gathered in a holy grail war where real and fake intermingle, and the fate of the grail was dragged ever deeper into the chaotic morass. We're not going to learn who they are. We're not going to learn who they are, or will we? Bridging chapter. One day in the forest. Okay. So we'll have to see what this is. I'm going to take a sip. One day in the forest. Afternoon. The Great Forest. Assassin had been wandering the forest for half a day now. She was sure she had chosen the safest, shortest route back to the city, but for some reason she could not seem to get clear of the trees. After using meditative sensitivity Zabania to make sure of the surrounding terrain, she arrived at a terrible conclusion. It seemed that the entire forest was shifting in obedience to someone's will. The terrain would shift slightly, and even here orientation would change. With a liberal use of meditative sensitivity, she would easily escape the forest. Then an idea struck her. Who created the bounded field in the forest? I must confirm whether they are friend or foe. If I could drag that monster into it, it might give me an advantage. Monster. With that thought in mind, Assassin advanced cautiously toward where the magical energy was the thickest. At last she came in sight of two heroic spirits, squaring off among the trees. You've done well to make it this far, though I doubt you managed it unless you were loved by the forest or have a special power of mine. I got Loxley, a friend of mine, to show me the way. Oh, I see you do appear to have a lot of friends. Saber answered Lancer's words with a grin. Okay. You can see them? A little. The odd conversation done with, Lancer shifted to the real matter at hand. And what business do you have with me? Saber looked at the spectacled girl stroking a wolf behind him as she replied. Okay. Well, you see, I don't know your true name or what kind of heroic spirit you are. I decided to wander around a bit and ask the first servant I found. Then he made his proposal. A short sentence with the potential to drag this Holy Grail war even further into chaos. Would you mind forming an alliance with us? As an offer, it was far too abrupt. Lancer stared blankly at Saber, then smiled kindly and opened his mouth to answer. And the answer he gave was... Next episode, Fake Strange Fake, Episode 3. Nice. Alright, here we go, baby. Alright, let me make this so that this is more easy to see. I can do this. Just give me a sec. Just give me a moment, because we're going to need... Well, I guess we don't need the full thing here. Okay, so... No, I do need to make this fit. Okay, just one sec. I'm going to go... Just live editing on the air. Copy. I'm going to paste... So how frick do I do it? Paste a duplicate. This is story, and we're going to call this one not story 2, but we're going to go, so we're going to hide story 1, and for this one, we're going to go, and we are going to, we're going to make it so that it's nice and easy to see at all. All right, we're going to go like this. right? And we're gonna go. Can I make it like? How can I do this? Do okay, hold. It's fine. We're doing this live. I'm gonna get rid of the cropping. No cropping on the top. We're gonna go less cropping on the sides, right? So we can see more. Okay. Okay, this is how we'll do like the full screen stuff. Got it. Sounds good. Okay, so instead if I want to go back, this one. Good. Okay. Good. So, Assassin, Dead Apostle, Jester Crutcher, true name, abandoned after gaining heroic spirit attributes. Interesting. Female, lawful good. Those are some good stats. Zealotry A. She gains ordinarily inconceivable willpower as a result of believing in a specific thing to the extent that her faith transcends the understandings of her surroundings. Wild. She quickly overcomes trauma and gains strong resistance. Zealotry, I don't even think I've seen that on many servants. That's cool. Presence Concealment A-. So she has Zabania Phantasmal Pedigree, anti-unit or anti-army, ranks E to A, the ability to freely alter her body to recreate 18 stored techniques of the past. In reality, she underwent extreme body modification, but upon becoming a heroic spirit, it became the ability to alter her body at will. The power of the individuals is greater or lesser than the originals on a case-by-case basis. I don't want to look up what all of them are, but by the end, I will probably be looking up all of them. Okay, here we go. Class, True Assassin. Fallius Deoland. True name, Hassan Isaba. Male. Unconfirmed stats. Shadow Lantern, the skill of becoming one with the shadows. Because he obtains magical energy from the surrounding area through shadows, he barely requires his master to supply him with magical energy unless he materializes. It's possible for him to conceal his status from his own master, barring the use of Command Seal. Presence Concealment EX, becoming one with the world itself. Become A+ when he shifts to attack. I feel like this has to be the first one. Okay, we have the Afterword too, which, again, is cool. But at the same time, like, it's going to be... I'm just going to kind of go quickly. Okay. And so I present the second volume of Strange Fake. I have a feeling I've been quite unreasonable, so I've been able to... worried if it was past checks from Natsu-san. Deeply moved with the ability to deliver it to your hands. I think the routes are getting complexly intertwined. By the way, about the mysterious female heroic spirit who shows up at the end. Some fans of Fate so far may have seen the description of her hairstyle and thought, wait a minute, she's not another Saberface, is he? Fortunately or unfortunately, she has a similar face hairstyle and their faces are nothing alike. The reason for their similar hairstyles, by the way, is so trivial that I don't even know if I'll get around to telling it by the last volume. Okay, but who is this? With that out of the way, the new heroic spirits who weren't part of the 7th annual April Fool's Project have started to show themselves. I think those of you who are well up in that line will be able to tell who they are. Speaking of which, I've made use of episodes from several reference books, research papers from the lives of the various heroic spirits. I've also arranged them to fit the setting, so I take full responsibility for every time something differs from historical fact. Please just read it as that's how the world is. The case of Castor and the man who sat next to him in the theater, for example, is told in far greater detail in Mr. Guy Endroit's excellent novel, King of Paris. The back and forth about vampires is extremely interesting, so I recommend giving it a read if you have the chance. Discussions about Dead Apostles is, of course, original to this book. Now, when the first book came out, I received a lot of letters asking, I know Enkidu's stats changed, but what about his fundamental point value? I vividly remember consulting with Nasu-san before it went on sale. About Enkidu's stats, he has Transfiguration, so I wanted to set his point total. He is Enkidu, and he's A rank, so all A's. All A's? But isn't that even higher than Berserker in the 5th? Everyone's gonna say heroic spirit favors him. He's a Mary Sue. I cannot believe that that's in here. A general term for here's my ultimate OC who's way stronger and more popular and luckier than all the characters. Yahoo type. Wow. I'm shocked that that actually is here. Don't let it get to you. But I mean, all A's is even higher than Karna. Don't let it get to you. To be honest, it's so high that even I think his stats are too exaggerated. I said, don't let it get to you. Oop. Even if you think about it the other way, it's Nemesis. All A's is his base. If you raise the strength A plot, another stat goes down 2 ranks. What do you mean Nemesis? Like Nemesis like from Resident Evil? What? What a cool-headed, precise world building. And what do you mean Nemesis? Someone will explain probably. Maybe that's a Fate thing I've just completely missed somehow. The editorial supervision I received was along those lines. As a result, please consider that as of book 1, Inkito's total stat points are hovering a little less than A's, but if his master of the Civil Wars completely recovers, then all A's aren't just a dream, the etc., just a secret. In any case, I got a strong encouragement from Nasu while drafting the plot. I'll deal with any amount of inflation on my end. In fact, writing something timid and shrinking like this won't make me happy, so stop it, boy. That put my fears to rest. That said, I still have a was this really a good idea feeling about making Hansa a full-body cyborg, but I'm sure it's alright. The Holy Church's science is the best in the world. That's a JoJo reference. And also, the mysterious archer who shows up at the end is a heroic spirit with a good reason for being able to go toe-to-toe with Gilgamesh, the oldest and mightiest of heroes, so I'd be delighted if you would take a long-term view of him. Okay, we'll have to see. Speaking of which, I don't know if his stats will appear in this volume, but I'll reference them here. But the assassin Faldi's summon has a skill Erase Presence EX, so in exchange his normal stats are a lot lower to other assassins. Balance. Oh, never mind. Then it might not be First Hassan. Still, getting editorial oversight was fun. I got to hear all sorts of inside stories, like the fact that Gilgamesh doesn't know a lot about dead apostles, and the reason for it. Although, interesting. The reason isn't directly connected to fate. Whether the details of Aika's past and Saber's true name will be revealed next time hasn't been decided yet, but more factions are forming and the situation in Snowfield is growing more volatile. I'd be happy if you enjoy the long-term view. I think the pace will be roughly 2 volumes a year, so keep on reading. My manager, Anan-san, who I gave a lot of trouble to my deadlines. My Dura manager, Wada-san, who adjusts the schedule for which I was working on at the same time. Editorial department, so we got a bunch of people here. Just a bunch. Yeah. The manga version, I'll give that a read later. We're not going to get to it just yet. We have other things we got to get to first. Created Fate, everyone at Type Moon, thank you so much. And that's it. That's it? Oh, we don't get one from Nasu this time? Okay. All right. Oh, but I kind of really want to see who, like, visually some of these things were, right? Oh, I said I wasn't going to read the manga, but honestly, I might have to just because I want to see what they look like. Oh, frick. Okay. Well, in that case, yeah, no. I kind of really want to know what they look like. Okay, so it shouldn't be a long video at least, which will be good because again the manga is quite short compared to it. Next time we'll be reading the volume 2 of the not volume 2. We'll be continuing reading the Strange Fake manga, which I do know at a point just stops happening, which is fair. But we'll read that just to sort of see how it all looks, see some stuff that we missed, and the next time, before we move on to Strange Fake Volume 3, and before we move on to the next game, we will be reading Garden of Avalon. Because 1, that's short apparently, and 2, I've been told it's very important for the next Lost Belt, so we'll be reading a bit of a short mid-novel there. So yeah, thank you all for watching, guys. We'll see you next time for some more Let's Read Fate Strange Fake with the manga adaptation. We'll see you then. Ciao.